Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I am back with another Walking Dead reaction. We are now on episode 4 of season 8, which is entitled Some Guy. Last week we had the continuation of the assault on all the different outposts that we started in the season premiere, and basically things were going fairly well in some areas but not so well in others, and particularly at the end we saw that Ezekiel's group was the group that seemed to be doing really well. We had Ezekiel who continued to chant, "Not one among us has fallen," and it's like, dude, everyone knows it as soon as you say something like that. You've jinxed everything. And unfortunately Ezekiel's positive thinking mantra came to a abrupt and automatic weapony end when somebody finally opened fire with what I have to assume was a Gatling gun, considering how fast those bullets were coming, and it seems like they were heavy caliber too. So we lost some people. We saw a bunch of Ezekiel's people swarm him to try to protect him, which was endearing but also just sad. So that's kind of where we ended, exactly where we ended the episode. But other moments, of course, as I mentioned in the last video, there was a lot of huge moral questions that were explored about war and, you know, the fact that Rick really hasn't established the ground rules of this war as far as, do we kill everybody or do we save some people? Do we capture? Do we kill? Like, that hasn't been a firmly established rule across all the factions that are involved here. And so we've got fights between Tara and Jesus and Morgan, and even to an extent Rick and Daryl not being on the same page as to how to deal with things going forward. So once this attack is over, I feel like the whole group's gonna have to sit down and have a little talk. We'll come to, well, not to that Jesus, but a come to Jesus moment and really figure out how they're gonna go forward in this war. Is it really just gonna be, no matter what, you take people out, or are we gonna have to make exceptions? Some great commentary in my comments last week about discussing, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. I really appreciate it, guys. It was a good discussion. Keep those comments flowing. Without further ado, let's get into this episode and we'll discuss it afterward. Okay? Yes. Lock love, baby. Lock love. Is that Ezekiel? Let the theater begin. Oh man, are we seeing all the faces of the people who are not coming back? I was gonna say they're probably parting for Ezekiel, but I realized, nope, they're definitely parting for Shiva. Do not want to be in Shiva's way. Of course, Jerry has a snack.
We face dire challenge.
Oh, that's terrible. Wow. Eviscerated. Please don't tell me Jerry's in that group, please. Please don't tell me Jerry's in that group. No. Why are you sitting there staring in amazement like you've never seen this before? Let's go. Run. Or just stare. That works. Yeah, dude. Please, Zeke, you're killing me.
Danger yourself for me. I have to.
He's got some loyal people. Wow. You better hope Jesus don't show up.
The only physical puppets we got.
Got the rest in the pool. This was just to tear them up. We got at least.
Damn! Did she shoot through the roof? Gangsta Carol, what is happening? For real, we need to put Carol and Morgan together.
Have you seen Shiva?
Not since we were hit.
I didn't even think about Shiva. Oh no, not Shiva.
We can get through.
What the hell? Wow. Talk about a day taking a turn for the absolute worst. You can figure this out, girl. If anybody can figure this out, it's Carol. Ooh, Carol's reloading, y'all. Time to clean house.
Damn it!
Oh, did your plan not working out? What the actual crap? Yes! Jerry! Yes! I've never been so happy to see Jerry in my life. Carol, like, I'm going home. This is too much.
I'm gonna borrow this for a sec.
Oh.
Jerry, I can... Your Majesty.
I'm so glad he didn't die.
Lower your guns now!
They don't care about each other.
Light him up!
She got the time she needed. She opened the gate, didn't she? Did you open the gate? Yes, Carol! Ooh, she grabbed some keys. Look at Carol just collecting, killing and looting.
Thank you, Your Majesty. For what? For being such a cool dude.
Jerry! You hit me all in the feels. Stop it.
You were lying to us about your friends, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Bloody Sophie's choice. The guns or the king. Okay, Daryl, I hope you have a plan if you're getting that close. Woo! Swerve! Swerve! That is a big gun, Rick. That is a really big gun. Daryl, can you shoot out one of the tires now? That'd be great. Just one tire. Did Rick just step over? Did you just like, pardon me, sir? Rick, you better be in that grass.
You got the guns.
You did, but you lost 2 vehicles.
You gotta leave me. I'm slowing you down.
No, you don't need to do that. Come on, I'm almost out of ammo.
Yeah, listen, when Mama Carol says, you's coming, you's coming. Oh, please not that pipe. Oh, no. Nope, that's a hard no.
I'm not your king. I'm not your majesty.
Do not yell at Jerry. Yes! Shoot him! No, no, no! 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 That ain't right, Walking Dead. That ain't right. You didn't have to take the tiger. Wow. All those people who left and it's only those 3 coming back. This is gonna suck. Heavy is the head. And he has nothing to say. Wow, well that was a somber note to end on. Okay guys. Well, that was episode 4 called Some Guy. And now we know that reference was to what apparently Ezekiel might be arguing a bit with himself on. Wow, interesting episode. Couple notable things. A lot of our main cast were not in this one. Ever since about season 5, we've had whole episodes that Andy Lincoln has not really been a part of, although he was in at the end, but by and large, short shooting day for Andy in this particular episode, and I'm not mad at it. It's just a little bit different. But I like the overall, like the tension was definitely there. Like I was tense through most of this episode. I don't think I talked all that much because I was just like, just taking in everything that was happening to Ezekiel's party. And you know, it's one of those things where, I mean, you know it's The Walking Dead, right? They just can't resist the possibility of just ripping your heart out when they can. And having Ezekiel's team do so well in the beginning, this really wasn't a group of people who were experienced in battle. And so going into this and having their first couple of battles go fairly well was, you know, it was a great build up to their esteem and to their confidence. And then, man, to just be decimated in one round, like that was terrible. That was awful. And just the impact that this is gonna have on Ezekiel is just, okay, but let's just kind of go back. There's a couple of points I wrote down in this episode because it was really actually quite good. This was just basically an ode to Ezekiel. This whole episode could be summed up as, let's actually find out what this king guy is really about. And I know that there are probably gonna be people who are gonna, you know, be a bit upset that this whole episode was focused on Ezekiel. I know a lot of people were not happy in the past when there were canned episodes about Morgan and canned episodes about Carol, but I'm okay with it because with such a big cast, and obviously now that they have 16 episodes per season, they've got a little bit more playroom to do character development. And even though we've had an introduction to the kingdom and an initial introduction to Ezekiel, we've never really gotten a chance to see what makes him tick, you know, as a person or as a character. And it's kind of important because Ezekiel's supposed to kind of be this larger than life big character, and he's kind of a big a big part of this whole war that's happening. So I'm okay with finding out more about him and more about why he does what he does and what kind of goes through his head as a king, because we've just seen the big speeches in the theatrics, but we've never really seen what kind of drives the mentality behind that. And so I'm glad that this episode really brought it out. And we kind of took a step back from the whole morality of this war, which we've kind of explored in the first few episodes, and just kind of talked a little bit more about why people continue to exist in this world and how they cope. So it was just interesting to see how Ezekiel has handled this idea of being a king and why he continues to play this role for people, even though he knows obviously he's not a king. It just kind of brings out, again, what kind of a leader he is, because that moment where all of those people threw themselves in front of Ezekiel, like, that's a split-second decision, people. Like, it's not like these were, we saw in the beginning, these are family people. These are people who had loved ones to go home to. They had reasons to try to save themselves and scramble in that moment. But the fact that they were willing to become human shields for Ezekiel shows you the connection that he made with them on a personal level, to the point where they felt it was more important to save him and what he represented to the kingdom than it was to save themselves. And that is crazy, because out of all the leaders that we've seen in this world that we're in right now, I don't think we've ever seen one that's as connected to his people as Ezekiel is, right? I mean, Gregory could care less about Hilltop, right? Maggie, of course, she's coming to care about the Hilltop, but really, would you say she's personally connected with the people there? I'd say at this point, no. Rick, he cares about Alexandria, but if you really think about it, Rick's always kind of had a very tight inner circle, and that's kind of who he like fiercely cares about. And then by extension, he kind of cares about Alexandria because that's what's supporting his inner circle, if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure if you ask Rick if he knew the names of everyone in Alexandria right now, he probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Or even if he could, he probably couldn't give you the lowdown on what's going on in their lives, because Rick's just not that kind of guy. You know, it's just not the kind of leader that he is. So to have Ezekiel being that guy, like even when he talked to his little jerkwad tormentor that had him for a while, you know, he's like, does Negan even know your name? Does he even care about you? Because that's what matters to Ezekiel. You know, he's a caretaker by nature. He's someone who cares about people by nature. So he makes personal connections with them. He's very much a servant leader in that way. And so it drew his people to him, and they are fiercely loyal to him because he's built those personal bonds and connections with them. That's why he could give a big theatrical speech at the beginning of this episode and actually inspire and rouse people with that without them going, you know, kind of like Carol was looking at him like, what is this kid talking about? But because he's made those connections with those people, they can believe in him when he says these things and know that it's coming from a genuine place. Wasn't a big fan of having that one like Negan, nameless Negan guy who, by the way, like the whole time I was looking at him, he reminds me of a character off of a show called The Trailer Park Boys, a Canadian show. If you've never seen it before, just take a look at the cast. There's a guy there who looks ridiculously like this guy. But digressing, yeah, like he was really, I was like, I remember like by like the third scene with the two of them, I was like, how is this guy talking so much? Why is he going in on Ezekiel like this? Like, this makes no sense whatsoever. Just a random guy coming up and reading Ezekiel on how he's not a real king and how he's just been you know, blindly, no, what's the word? He's been conning these people the whole time. Like, I'm like, dude, what is your issue? Like, why do you care? This means nothing. Like, if this came from the redhead, I would be more convinced if it came from that redheaded jerk that was with Morgan than this rando guy, right? But I know that his whole point was to get Ezekiel doubting whether or not he's doing the right thing, whether or not he should be in a leadership role. Obviously, after this massive loss he just experienced, he's questioning a lot of things, as a good leader does. But I don't know, I just didn't really, it kind of felt weird that they brought in this random guy to do it. I would have been happier maybe if the show had allowed it to be an internal thing for him. Like just him thinking in his head about all the times he said things to them, maybe even back to his conversation with Carol last season where he's like, you know, I'm just a zookeeper who took on this role. Like if we'd seen things like that and like an internal struggle with him being like, did I do the right thing? Did I really just screw up and get all these people killed? That would have been a little bit more like easier to swallow, I guess, than just having some random guy just go in on him and have Ezekiel actually believe it. Do you know what I mean? But I would have preferred that to have been an internal struggle with him versus just a random guy that got hewn in half by Jerry. I have never been so happy to see Jerry. I'm so glad they did not kill his character. I love his character so much. I genuinely was scared when I saw those bodies. I'm like, please do not roll Jerry over. Please don't have Jerry come staggering out as a walker. I can't. I love his character. It's amazing, you know, that actor, kudos to him, because comparatively he's not had a lot of screen time, but the fact that the idea of him dying had me so upset shows what a great job he's done with the little he's been given. So I'm so happy we still have Jerry. I just want to say as a side note, I follow Daniel Newman, who is the redheaded guy who also had the name Daniel in the show, and really enjoyed him playing that role. Sad that he had to die. I know he couldn't give us any warning on Twitter, but I really enjoyed watching you over the past couple of years, Daniel, and I wish you all the best in whatever show or endeavor you've got going on next. I liked the theme when we had Carol and Ezekiel having that little conversation, the flashback to them before they left, and Zeke talking about how he had to decide to become what he is. You know, because Carol was kind of upset at him when he was like, don't worry, when the time comes, I'll become the soldier or whatever I need to be to get this done. And Carol, you know, Carol kind of had that, well, how are you not that now? Like, how are you going to lead people in this battle if you're not what you need to be? And he's basically said to her, you know, you choose who you're going to be in any given situation. And I love how he brought up how Carol has evolved as a character as well, because she didn't start out as somebody who is bold and strategic and basically a stone cold killer. You know what I mean? Carol from season 1 would not recognize this Carol. She probably would have told you in season 1 she was incapable of those things. Now, were they inside of her? I would say yes. But life and circumstances occurred and she chose to get stronger and harden up and do what she needs to survive. Just love that they kind of brought that cyclically around and kind of talked about, you know, talked to Carol's story and evolution as well as a character that she didn't want to be. She doesn't like the idea that she's damn good at killing, but it's what she needs to do to survive. And that's all Ezekiel was saying, is that, listen, this is what we do. We have our situations, we're presented with something, and then we choose how we're gonna react to it and we adapt. So great conversation, really good just dialogue about a lot of the character evolutions. I mean, you can really expound that to all the characters who are still around in this show, because they've all had to grow, evolve, and change in order to survive this long. Overall, I mean, I think that's really all there was in this episode to talk about. It really was focused, as I said, mainly on Ezekiel and his, just who he is behind the grandiose speech and the fact that he isn't just some guy. You know, he might have been some guy when the apocalypse started, but he now is King Ezekiel. As Jerry said, yes, he needs to call him that because that's what he is to Jerry. He's become somebody that people want to follow. So that was the episode, guys. I thought it was really good. It was definitely a nice little departure from the intensity of this whole all-out war storyline. What did you think of this episode? Do you feel like you really enjoyed the whole exposition about Zeke and more about his character, or do you feel like we should have just continued with moving the story along forward, which I feel like it still did? But leave your comments below and let me know. And also, what do you guys think they're gonna do with those guns? I mean, they just wrecked 2 vehicles basically trying to get those guns away from the Saviors. How are they gonna get them back to Alexandria? If you have any theories, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, go ahead and click like. And hey guys, why don't you join the fam? Please click subscribe so you can see more from this geeky face. Until next time, see ya.